Guys, this is our third episode of Fearless, and I've got the most amazing guy on today, a personal friend of mine, the movie director, the DJ, Tony Tucker or Terry Stone, the man himself's here. What's happening, Terry?
I'm good, Tom. I'm good. I'm just going to put it out there that this may only be your third episode, but this is going to be your biggest episode. It's going to be your greatest of all time, baby.
So everybody knows who Terry Stone is. Do you want to give us a bit more in depth on who you really are?
I sort of grew up on a council estate, left school with no qualifications, didn't really know what I wanted to do other than I like boxing, and I kind of fancied myself as a boxing promoter or manager. And I sort of left school, worked in McDonald's, went through lots of sort of menial jobs, mainly because I didn't have any qualifications and I couldn't get a good job. And then I found my vocation in life, which was sales. And I worked at a department store called Orders, which a lot of people will probably remember. I'm not sure if they're still around now, but if you don't know what Orders is, it's like House of Fraser. You know, it's like a chain of department stores. And you know, I was working on the TV department. I had an interest in, you know, white hi-fi's, TV videos, and the guy put me on £60 a week. But I was very interested in what the products did.
And what age were you then, Terry?
What's that?
What age were you then?
I literally just turned 17. Okay. And I'd got in, you know, I'd backed up anybody that walked on and sort of said, "Oh, can I help you?" And I was selling more than his so-called salesman, you know. And he said to me after a month, he said, "I'm going to put you on commission." And that was something he lived to regret, because within a month I was earning more than him. And he actually pulled me in and said, "You know, this isn't right. How come? You know, I'm the manager basically." But I said, "Look," I said, "you put me on commission." But my life turned around because I passed my driving test, but obviously didn't have any money for a car. And then this guy come on the department store floor, probably, I think it was the first week of December, and he was literally like, "I'm looking for some presents for my son and daughter for Christmas." And back then the hi-fis were like stacked up. They had all like lights on them, tape decks, CD.
I remember.
Decks. Only people of their age would remember that, Tom.
Yeah.
But we did that, and then towards the end of the process, he sort of said, "Look, I'm going to buy two," and he said, "I don't know whether to get this one or this one." I said, "Look," I said, "this is the better one, and this is why. And you know, if you get this, you know, I'll give you X, Y, Z." And he went, "All right." He said, "I'll have them." And he said, "How much do you earn?" I said, "That's a bit nosy." And he went, "Well, I'm just asking." You know, I said, "Well, I get 60 quid a week plus commission." And he said, what do you earn sort of a month?" And I told him, and he said, "That's quite a lot of commission." He said, "You're obviously good at what you do." And he said, "I like you. So why don't you come work for me?" And I said, "What do you do?" And he said, "I've got a scaffolding company, and I'm the sales rep." So I was like, "Well, what's the deal?" And he went, "I'll give you a car, 10 grand a year, plus commission and a mobile phone and an expense account." So I was like, "Can I start Monday?"
Brilliant. Wow.
So that got me, I went from obviously working in a department store to then becoming a sales rep, nice car. And for a couple of years, I was living the dream. You know, I was what they referred to in the 80s as a yuppie. So I did that. And then from there, there was a big recession, lost my job, and I was on the dole for a year, which was depressing. And, you know, my mum, unfortunately, I was living with my mum at the time. She lost her house, and because my nan lived with us, who was in her 90s, we got put in some emergency council accommodation. So that got us a house, a roof over the head. But being on the dole for a year is probably one of the most miserable experiences I ever had. And I always scratch my head when people are happy to be on benefits. You know, I've always wanted to work. I've always wanted to achieve. Even, you know, when I was on the council estate and I was 15, I used to walk from the estate down the A30 in Camberley into the town centre because I couldn't afford the bus. And I used to walk past all these big houses, and I'd look at the big houses and I'd be like, "I'm going to have one of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even at 15, I was sort of
Of
wanting
course.
it, visualizing it, and not knowing how I was going to get it, but I was getting it, and I was
Yeah.
getting off the estate. But then when I got that job, I was like, wow, one day I could be a sales manager of the whole of the UK, and have a nice car, and have a nice pension. But that wasn't meant to be. But in a weird sort of way, lots of people always say when you have these sort of curveballs or diversions off the road,
Yeah.
sometimes they're done for a reason. And at the time, I didn't see what the
100%.
reason was. I just thought my life was ending. I just thought, I can't believe that I started off so bad, went so good, then I was back down there again.
And that's
Um,
and that's and that's really life. And I'm sure you'd agree the journey that we've both been on has had its ups and downs. And the thing that I'm loving listening to is sales. Like, I believe sales is the best job in the world.
yeah, you get to
Like,
talk to people, and it's
yeah,
fun, right?
yeah,
So
100%. And that got you started then, the sales job. But I
yeah,
can
and
also, like you had also said about you couldn't afford the bus or the taxi. I remember being a lifeguard when I was 17. And if you missed the last bus, you had a 4 or 5 mile walk home because the
yeah,
last thing you'd have done was get a taxi or a bus
right,
because you couldn't
yeah.
afford it.
Now it's just everyone's on the Uber, isn't they? It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Like my kids get Uber to the house with food. And you're like, what? It's a whole different world we're living in.
we've spoiled them, Tom. That's what it is. We've spoiled
Yeah.
them.
So
But
So what happened next then, Terry? A year? You obviously knew what it was like to live in Hard Street, which is definitely
I
the
mean,
making
look,
of you.
it was like the universe teased me. It was like, I didn't have a bad upbringing, but I mean, living on a council estate with no money isn't particularly fun. You didn't really go on holidays abroad. You didn't really, at Christmas you got stuff, but it wasn't like you can have anything you want. And my mum and dad both had just normal jobs, and they struggled. That just like probably everybody else's parents on a council estate. But so I'd always been used to that sort of level of hardship. But when we bought our first house, and when we went on that journey, and I got a job and I got a car, and I was like, wow, I'm fucking 17. I'm achieving something great. I'm going to get that house. And then it was literally like someone ran up to me and kicked me in the nuts and sort of said, "Have that." And I was sort of sitting. I was miserable probably for a year, but I kept still trying to get a job. I didn't give up, but it was really depressing. Thinking, what could have been, you know what I mean? And then the rave scene exploded. Lots of people
Mm.
kept saying to me, "Go to a rave, go to a rave." And obviously, if you read the papers then,
Yeah.
raves were people taking drugs, dancing in fields.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was sort of running half marathons and boxing. So I was the last person who wanted to go and dance in a field and take ecstasy. It wasn't my
Yeah.
thing. So I was sort of like not interested. It's full of druggies. It ain't my thing. And then it kept on and on and on and on. And all my mates were doing it. And then one day I was like, right, I'll come to one of these raves. And there was an event on in Worthing. It was like a country manor house called
Yeah.
Stearns, and it held 3,000 people. My experience of clubbing was sticky carpets in nightclubs, fights, drinking pints. It wasn't really, um, you know,
Something glamorous.
no, it was spit and sawdust places. So I walked into this rave, and there's like 3,000 people all having a great time. Girls are coming up to you going, "Oh, come and have a dance with me." All the guys are walking up, going, "Oh, mate, how you doing?" And I'm thinking, it was like walking into this alternative universe where
Yeah.
everyone's friendly, there's no trouble, the girls chat you up. I was like, this is my thing, right? So I, I come out of this rave, and my mate paid for me to go because I didn't have any money, and I was like, I really want to go raving every week. And he said, well, it's 20 quid to get in and blah 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 blah, and I can't pay for you every week. And as I was walking out of this club, there was these guys giving out flyers. So I stopped the guy and I said, "Oh, mate," I said, "Do you get paid for this?" And he went, "Yeah." He said, "We get like £10 a person." So I'm thinking in my head, well, I've got 20 mates who go raving. If I get them all to give the flyers out, it's a couple of £100 there. So I said, "Have you got any jobs?" And he went, "Yeah, we're always looking for people." So I phoned him up and I said, "Look, mate," I said, "I've got 20 mates that love raving and they go out Wednesday to Sunday. If we give out flyers for you, will you get us in the clubs for free, VIP?" And he went, "Yeah." So I rang on my mates. I said, "Right," I said, "this is the deal. I'll get you in VIP. You ain't got to pay anymore, but you got to give the flyers out, and I'm keeping the money." And they was like, "Sweet." So we
Right.
started doing that, and then I went from earning 40 quid a week on the dole to, you know, 500 or 600 quid a week, giving out bits of paper at so clubs that I wanted
Yeah.
to be in anyway.
Which was
So
a lot of money then.
massive money. And then I thought, oh, I'm only going to do this for a few months. And then on the back of the flyers, I don't know if you remember when they had the big raves, but they had ticket touts, and there was nobody in Surrey where I lived that were doing it. So I said, why don't you put me on a ticket tout? And I remember my mate, he had a sports shop called Four Sports, and it was in Camberley Town Centre. And literally, that was my meeting point. So I literally, people be ringing me up going, can I have 10 tickets? Can I have 20 tickets? I said, yeah, sure. Meet me at Four Sports. I'll be there all day on Saturday. So I just rock up to my mate's thing, and he fucking loved me because there'd be like 1,000 people go through his shop, and they're all buying tracksuits, trainers. So and I'm just sitting there going, ah, just send these tickets. So
Wow.
I was
Yeah,
earning a couple of grand just sitting in his sports shop on a Saturday. And then at the end of it, I'm going, what do I get then? You must fucking look after me as I'm bringing you all this business. And he went, pick anything you want. So I had like, back then it was like Troop, Adidas. I had all the trainers,
Sergio Tashini.
yeah, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So feeler. So you know, I was probably the best dressed guy in Camberley. And then, you know, if you fast forwarded a year, it grew quite big. And then I sort of started a magazine up called The Scene magazine, which was it was like a cross between Viz and Mad. I don't know if you remember those
I
magazines.
do. Yeah.
I try and make it.
I think we're both showing our age here.
Yeah, but we're both 50 plus. I'm a little bit older than you, Tom, but
Yeah.
but the but you know, that gave me another thing because, you know, again, I had no qualifications, but I'm now an editor of this magazine, which sounds crazy in itself. And then I think it was middle of 93. So I've been doing this for like three and a half years, 4 years. And then someone said, you're doing the flyers, you're doing the tickets, you're doing a magazine, why don't you put a rave on? So I was like, that's a good idea. And then I come up with a name, One Nation, which was a drum and bass night.
Which was huge. I can remember One Nation. I was massively involved in the club scene.
It's still big now. And if you think,
Yeah,
2003, that's 31 years. I mean, it's mad. It's crazy. And then, you know, we started off doing small stuff, but it grew quickly. So a friend of mine had a club in Aldershot called the Rhythm Station, and it was the only club in the Thames Valley that had a 6 a.m. license. And he said, oh, you're doing the raves, didn't you? He said, can you come and do my club for me? So he just paid me a retainer, and I run his club for him on a Friday and a Saturday night. And it was actually quite funny because I've never been to Aldershot before because it was always a bit punchy, being the home of the British Army. And I remember going there just before it changed, and the guy said to me, oh, you know, this is the club, you know, come and have a meet all the doormen and blah, blah, blah. And as I was walking in the club, this guy, the doorman, have lifted him up and they've just thrown him out on out the front and like weighed him in outside. And I was just like, you know, welcome to Aldershot. And then his wife come out. She got thrown across the concrete, and she's got up and started attacking him. Right? And they're having a fight outside the club. And then she took her heel off and started hitting him around the head with her heel, split all his head open. And I'm just standing at the door thinking, how is this going to work? Because you can't have these people here when we've got a rave and everyone's on that sort of happy vibe. And the guy said, don't worry, we ain't going to let these, he called them reprobates, you know, we're letting these reprobates in. But then we opened up the next week with no trouble, and it became like a really hot club in Aldershot. And we had
a lot of the things that we see in your movies, then it's stuff that you've probably reenacted of actual scenes that you've seen.
I mean, look, when you're running clubs, and bear in mind, I was doing it on a massive scale. So I had weekly club nights in places like Aldershot. When I was doing the raves, it was in Tottenham, Stratford, Brixton, Birmingham, Manchester. It wasn't in any nice places. And back then, even though lots of these places are gentrified now, back then, if you walked around there at 9 o'clock at night, you would get attacked or turned over. So it was like turning up in Stratford in East London with 3,000 people from all over the country having a good time. And then you've got all the local, what I call wrong-uns, deciding to sort of come down and start robbing and mugging people and coming in the rave and causing trouble. So, yeah, a lot of the stuff that, I mean, and again, what I find interesting about my journey when I look back over it,
Yeah,
everything that I've done, whether it was giving out flyers, doing the magazine, putting an event on, making a film, it's all led me, you know, and I've had obviously real life experiences, as you know, Tom,
yeah,
of
100%.
being there, seeing it, and having a t-shirt, and I think that does add a lot of what you know, authenticity to what you do, and I think that even the good thing, or like if I look at all the good things that have happened in my life and all the bad things,
Yeah,
I'd say that the bad things, even though no one likes the bad things, you always seem to learn the bad things. The bad things are the learning curves, and
100%.
and then what you get from that is when the good things happen, then you appreciate 'em more. I think if all
Yeah,
you had
like
was good things,
I'm
you
really lucky to have you as one of my mentoring clients and dream mentoring. And like one of the things I would always say, you know, your hardest days are the foundations of your life. You know, it's the failures that turn into your foundations, and all the things that you learned from losing a house, living in a council house, you know, not having a job, all of that's made you a serial successful entrepreneur now who doesn't know how to stop.
right. When we first met, Tom, and obviously we started working together. You know, I'd never done. Obviously, I've heard of Grant Cardone. I've read the, you know, The Secret, and, you know, Be Positive and Anything Can Happen books. And you know, I think whatever level you're on, it doesn't matter if you're a small success, a medium success, or a big success. I found your mentoring course and your one-to-one mentoring sessions really useful for me, because it doesn't matter, you know, where you're. Everybody has a bad day, and sometimes they need a bit of the old Tom Smith positivity to kick them up the arse.
Thank you. Yeah, one of my clients calls it tomativity.
Positivity, yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I like
yeah.
that.
But you know the funny thing too, the two of us know a load of guys like Gaz and all, Gary Brooks, the guys from God's
Great,
Kitchen
Gary.
and stuff. Both of
He's
us knew
funny.
people, and we're obviously very close to meeting back in the day, and we just
I
must
think
off.
they kept us apart for a reason, Tom.
Yeah, I think so too. Um,
But it was actually funny because when we were talking about Gary Brooks, because I hadn't seen him for like years, and I was in Vegas with some mates,
yeah,
and on the table, Jason Statham was there. There was all these like celebrities and all these people, and I've like rocked up, and I haven't been. I think it was called the Wet and Wild Beach. It was like a beach club in the MGM
yeah.
in Vegas. And I've literally walked in there, and I've just got off a plane, so I'm a little bit jet lagged. And I've walked to the table, and it's at the front by the DJ. And I'm like, "Hello, guys, we're all having a laugh." And then I get a tap on the shoulder, and it's Gary, right? And he goes, "What are you fucking doing here?" And I said, "What do you mean, what am I fucking doing? What are you fucking doing here?" And he goes, "This is my place." And I
Yeah,
said, "How much do you charge these people to dance around the swimming pool?" He went, $100. I said, "I'm in the wrong game."
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
I said, "What
yeah,
about the tables?" He went, "The one you're on, 60 grand." He said, "That one's 50 grand. That one's 40 grand. The really shit ones over there are 10 grand." And I was like, "What is going on?" Because,
yeah,
you know, I
yeah,
used to charge people 15 quid to come to a rave all night, you know. So
yeah,
now they're
yeah,
charging $100 just to dance around a swimming pool.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and
he's the
he's
main
kind
guy
of,
now in Vegas. He's the
well,
main man.
he's become like the king of it. And what was quite funny, it gave me a few bonus points. One of my dear friends, who's like ridiculously wealthy, was in Vegas, and his daughter was a really good friend of. Uh, Sorry, she was a big fan of a DJ called Martin Garrix, and I didn't know who Martin Garrix was, but he's massive. And my mate said, "Oh, is Martin Garrix playing at your mate's place? Because I'd love to take my daughter. 'Cause she's a big fan." So I rang him up, and he went, "He was here last week, but he's not here for 2 weeks." And I said, "Oh, that's a shame." I said, "My mate's here for a week, and his daughter, massive fan, is a really dear friend of mine." And this is, you know, what I love about Gary is he goes, "Where's he staying?" And I said, "He's staying at the Win." And he goes,
Yeah.
"Right." He goes, "Give me a few days." And he goes, "I'll tell you when I'm going to go down and find out where he is." So I said, I rang my mate up and I said, "Right." I said, "My mate's going to come and see you at the Win on Wednesday, but I'll let you know what time." So then he's rang me and he's gone, "Right, I'm going to be there 1 o'clock. Where's he going to be?" So I give him my mate's name and I told him they got these nice cabanas. I don't know if you've been to the Win, but they have these like cabanas.
Oh yeah.
So he's turned up and he's walked up and he's gone, "Oh, you so and so?" He goes, "Yeah." And he goes, I'm Terry's mate. He goes, where's your daughter? And he goes, oh, she's over there. Because Terry told me you like Martin Garrix. And he was like, yeah. And he goes, I've got you a present. And it was one of his framed platinum discs with his thing on there. And he somehow got him to fucking sign it. And he rang me up and he went, Terry, he said, I am the coolest dad in Vegas now. Thank you for that. But I said to Gary, I said, Gary, I said, I owe you big time, mate. But that's the type of guy he is, you know. If he's a proper,
and I hadn't spoke to him for years, and recently we started hooking up again, and he hasn't changed a bit. Yeah. Although he's at a huge level of success, he's still one of the lads, which is lovely to see.
Yeah, that's Vegas, baby.
Vegas, baby. So, rise with Footsoldier, Terry, Tony Tucker. Where did it all come from?
Well, what happened was, obviously, when I did the One Nation, the next step was Garage Nation. And you know, I got to the point where I was doing like 20 events a month. And, you know, they called me the king of clubs. I was winning awards. You know, I won multiple awards on garage and drum and bass. And I think towards 2003, I'd sort of been doing it for 10 years. I think that there'd been a few problems. There'd been a rise in knife crime, gun crime. It got to the point where it wasn't fun anymore. And
I get it.
In the last year of putting events on, I had guns pulled out of me a few times, and I just thought, you know what, I don't need this shit anymore. I met my wife, and she was pregnant, and I just thought, you know what, I've had a good run at this. Now, you know, I'll sell it because I was at the top, and try something else. But I've got something to announce today, Tom, which I only announced yesterday on social media, which make you laugh. I did a documentary called United Nation, 3 decades of drum and bass, and I did another one called 25 Years UKG. Both of them are on Amazon Prime. And United Nation, the drum and bass one, was on Netflix. And I said at the end of both of these videos, I'm thinking of making a comeback. And lots of people were like, yeah, you should do it, show them how to do it, blah, blah, blah. And an opportunity has presented itself literally a few days ago. And I've been thinking about it for about 3 or 4 months. But, you know, drum and bass now has come back like massive. Yeah. And what I've done is I've just lined up with some great people who are in that scene that, I mean, my son's doing it. He's promoting and doing events himself, and he's become really successful. He just had a sellout party in Marbella. He's just doing Ibiza, you know. So he's going to be helping out. But we're launching United Nation again. So this year we're going to be doing a Terry Turbo comeback event. You know, so I'm excited about that. I still like the music, but as I said, some people might say I'm having a midlife crisis.
Man, listen, get it done. If that's what you're being amazing at, and there's only one life too, why would you not look at? If you've seen your face right now in camera, how happy it's making you talking about it, you need to do it, Terry. And then
well, do you know what, Tom?
Come to Ireland, come to Northern Ireland, and do a tour here.
Well, no, I think the plan will be do a couple of parties in England first, do a few up and down the country, do a festival next year, and then I think then we'd do a tour. I mean, we only announced it yesterday, right? So I think, you know, as it filters through, more and more people will come out, because that's what, when I was doing it before, people would reach out to me and say, oh, do you want to do a party in Manchester? And I'll be like, sure, we'll collaborate, you know what I mean? But I'm not going to go up to Manchester and promote it. That's their gig, you know. But I'm doing that. But then rewinding back to answer your question about Footsoldier, when I sold the business, I got in into the bar and restaurant game, which was a disaster. So it's
a hard game.
It was great, you know, and I had a great time. But when you actually look at it, you know, it's the problem with having a bar and restaurant is, unless you're going to be there making the drinks, making the food, waking up in the morning, you got to eat, sleep, breathe, and shit. Basically. And I wasn't. I just wanted to turn up, have a drink, have a laugh, and be that this is my bar, you know. And it was great for a year. And what we should have done is sold it after a year, because the turnover was 150 grand a year when we bought it. When we had the first year, it was $1 million. So we'd like 10x'd it.
Yeah.
But the problem was being inexperienced. I was like, we got all this money now. Let's rewire it. Let's paint it. Let's do the garden. Let's invest it in the business. Let's set up a
Yeah.
chain of these. But the
Yeah.
problem was that we only owned the leasehold, so all we did, everything we did was just to benefit Green King. It didn't benefit us. And
Yeah. I
then
get it.
when they shut Ascot Racecourse, because the bar was in Ascot, and when that shut down for 2 years, obviously that had a big knock on the business, and then everyone started
Course.
opening up bars and clubs. So after a year of being like red hot, it started to falter out, and then we held on to it too long. That's why it
Yeah.
didn't work out financially. But again, it was another lesson, and it was funny because when I started doing the films, and I'll get onto how that happened in a minute, but when
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
started
You're
to
the
get
man.
the accountant, the lawyers, the bank manager to talk about this film stuff, they all said, "Oh, what have you done previously?" And I said, "Oh, I've had a bar and restaurant." And they said, "Oh, how did that go?" And I said, "Not very well." And they said, "If any of their clients say we're thinking of investing in a bar and restaurant, I ask them how much they want to do. And my advice to them is to put it in the middle of the room and set fire to it." That was an accountant, a lawyer, a bank manager. So that's 3 people. And I said, "Oh, where was you 3 years ago?"
When I needed you.
um, but how the film stuff started was a friend of mine who committed suicide, Dave Courtney, did
Oh
a
wow.
film called Hell to Pay. And basically, he rang me up and said, "I'm making a movie. Do you want to be in it?" And obviously, if someone rings you up and says, "Do you want to be in a film?" Everybody, I've grown up watching films. So for me, it was like, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to be in it.
Yeah. Of course.
Um, but I've turned up on this film set and I'm working with people that was in Snatch, that have been on the bill, EastEnders. So I'm sort of thinking, wow, I'm in a movie with these people and we're all chatting away and they're all going, "Oh, you're doing really well. You should be an actor, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Well, how do I become an actor?" And they said, "Well, you've done your first part. Most people haven't even got to this bit yet. So
Yeah.
you've kind of done it the wrong way around. You've got the part,
Yeah.
not knowing what you're doing." So, and I said, "Well, what else do I need to do?" And they said, "Well, you need to get an agent and you need to get some pictures done." So I got some pictures done, sent a letter out to, I think it's 300 agents or something in England, and just said, "Oh, I'm looking for representation. I'm in this
Yeah.
film." And I had 3 of them actually write back to me and said, "Oh, we're representing you." So I was like, wow. And I did a bit of research and they weren't like massive agencies, but they were sort of middle tier. So I had a meeting with them and the one I ended up going with got me a part in EastEnders. So um,
Wow. That's
did that
amazing.
in 2 episodes in EastEnders, but it was when EastEnders was like the biggest thing ever. I think it was
Yeah.
20 million people watched these 2 episodes. So that was really good. But then I realised when I did that, I didn't really know what I was doing.
What was your part in EastEnders?
I played a guy called Mick, and if you're an EastEnders fan, you will remember uh, there was a gangster called Andy Hunter, and he come onto the square and he started dating Kat Slater, who was with Alfie Moon at the time,
Right.
and basically, Andy Hunter was marrying Kat, and Alfie Moon didn't like it. So him and Bill come down to basically gnaws it up. So we were the heavies that went into the Queen Vic and terrorised Shane Ritchie, and it was actually quite funny because that the guy who plays Ian Bill, Adam Woodyer. I said to him, you better run fast, mate, because I'm going to grab hold of you, right? And he goes, "You ain't ever going to catch me, right?" And I kept trying to catch him, but I couldn't catch him. And I was like, "You little fucker!" I said, "How come you're so?" And he goes, "I do 26-mile bike rides, marathons." So he's like super fit. But when you look at him,
Yeah.
he just looks like a geek, doesn't he? But he's actually super fit. So I couldn't catch him. But
Right.
that made me realise that I needed to do some actual acting training work. So I got
Yeah.
some personal acting coaches. I joined the Actors Centre, which is a good place to go for lessons in Covent Garden. And then I joined an acting course for 2 years. And my wife always used to laugh
Yeah.
because she said, you was the king of clubs and now you're going to school with your satchel." She said, "Look at this poor guy. He's like in his 30s wanting to be an actor, you know." But I always had to park my car around the corner. Do you know what I mean? Because they were all sort of lovers, and they would have looked at me and gone, "Oh my god, look at him driving that vulgar car, you know. And at the time I was driving, it looked like a pimpmobile. It was like a black Bentley with blacked out windows and aluminium wheels. So yeah, that wouldn't have gone down with the acting fraternity. So
Okay.
so I did that. And then after a year of being a thespian, and you know, you sort of have to wait for the phone to ring. You have an audition, you don't get it. You have an audition, you do get it. And I was just like, this is so fucking flaky, this business.
Yeah.
And 95% of actors are unemployed. So I was like, okay, well, you know, what can I do to change that? And I remember being at the Actors Centre, and I'd done this like 3-day course. And I'd already done a bit of work, right? And there was a guy doing what's called the method. And I've always sort of watched De Niro and Pacino and thought, well, they do the method, you know, this must be good. And all this guy did was basically, it was like abuse. He was just abusing people, going, and he said to me, he said, all you're ever going to do is play like doorman or thugs. You're never going to play anything other than that. And he's like attacking everybody in there, going, you're never going to be this, you'll never be that. I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking, who is this guy? Right. So I get up that night and I look him up. He hasn't even got an agent, right? He's just a failed actor that wants that,
Yeah.
you know, I think the saying is those that can't teach and those that do. Do you know what I mean? So he was one of them.
Great saying.
So,
Yeah.
so when I went in there the next day, I was having a cup of tea and I was talking to these people and I was saying to them, you know, I'm getting really disillusioned with this acting stuff. I actually thought I'm gonna knock it on the head. And one of them said, oh, you know, yeah, it's a tough game, blah, 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 but you've got to just keep up. And I said, how do you actually stay alive, mate? Because I said, you know, I've only earned 8 grand this year, and you know, I've got a mortgage, I've got a wife, I've got a kid. I can't live on 8 grand a year, right? And the guy said, you've earned 8 grand a year. He's going, well, from acting, like you know, like I'm a genius, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I said, and he said, I haven't worked for 3 years. I said, well, how do you stay alive?
Wow.
And he said, well, you know, I've got a bar job, I do a bit of cleaning. And I said, how do you afford to live in London? He said, well, he said, there's a sort of 6 of us in his 1-bedroom flat, all sleeping on like mattresses and stuff. And I was like, fucking hell.
Yeah.
And I was just literally,
Yeah.
I've got to get out of this job. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
And then I've gone back into this class, and now I've got the hump. And this guy started again, and I stood up and I said, who the fuck are you, mate? I said, you're nobody, right? So I said, stop telling everyone in here they can't achieve. I said, because you haven't achieved anything. Well, really put it on him.
Did you call him? Did you call him Did you call him a see you next Tuesday?
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't going to say it on this show, but I did give it to him, right?
I'm okay because everybody loves you saying it.
Yeah, so I called him a fucking cunt. And it got to the point. It got to the point where this guy's looked at me and he didn't know what to say, right? Because if he had said anything, I'd probably fucking hit him because I was that annoyed with him, right? And then I've walked out, and it was really funny. You know when it's really uncomfortable and everyone was just so I obviously left the Actors Centre, and I thought, you know, and I was with a mate of mine literally the next day, and he sort of said, oh, how's the acting going? I said, don't you start. I said, you know, I've made a massive ricket with this. I said, I might just buy the club stuff back and start doing that again. And he said, look, he said, what do you want to do? And I said, oh, I want to be in the movies. And he went, well, why don't you make a movie? He said, you've been putting all these events on. It can't be that difficult. And I said, look, I said, if I get a script, will you put some money? He went, I'll put 10 grand in. I said, well, I'll put 10 grand in. So I walked away from that meeting with 20 grand. And then I got home and I rang all my mates. And it's the most retarded conversation ever. I'm like, hi, how you doing? Yeah, great. I know it sounds mad, but I'm making a movie and I'm putting 10 in, he's putting, do you want to put 10 in? Did I be in it? Yeah. Oh, I'll put 10 in. So he raised 140 grand from my mates, family and friends. Went off and made this film, which was called One Man and His Dog. And it was a dog, right? But again, that was learning how not to make a film. We still managed to get 25% of our money back. So it wasn't a complete disaster. But that got me on that filmmaking journey. And then it's like when you put something out into the universe, you know, making a film, people were like, oh, Terry makes films now. So it went from Terry's gone into acting at 30, what an idiot, to he's actually making films now. You know, it's a bit mad. Yeah. And then what happened was then, and I'm sure you're like this in your business, Tom, but when anybody knows that you're doing something, everyone comes out of woodwork. I've got an idea. I've got a film. You should do this. You should do that. I've got a book, you know. So I got a friend of mine who I was very close to. He he got knocked off his bike and he was in a wheelchair. But he actually rang me and said, he said, you should make like a British Boys in the Hood. And he said, obviously, we've been through it in the club. So he said, we know how it all works and we know who all the guys are. So let's do it. So we developed a film called Rolling with the Nines, which BAFTA nominated, won Rain Dance. You know, that really put me on the map, that film.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
he said, I want you to play a racist cop in it, right? So we had people like Dizzy Rascal, Estelle, we had Kano, he did his first movie role with us.
Right.
You know, Jason Fleming, Robbie G, Vass Blackwood, like an amazing cast, Billy Murray. And what was funny about the film was we had the premiere. So this was the first, so my second film, and we had a Leicester Square premiere. And you know, Tom, for anybody who doesn't know, has been very kind to sponsor our premieres in Leicester Square. And we've had some epic nights. But that was the first one I did. And it was basically these Vass Blackwood and Robbie G, who are both black with guns going like this, right? That was the poster. And a week before, there was a shooting at the Hippodrome. So these black guys had run into the Hippodrome with machine guns and like shot a load of people dead in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then obviously we're doing their premiere the next week, and there's these two guys with guns in Leicester Square, right? So the Met rung up and said, look, you know, we're a little bit worried about your premiere. Can you send us the guests as to who's going to attend? And they went through it all, and they went, look, we're really worried that there's going to be a shootout. I said, look, no, there's not going to be a shootout. They said, look, it happened last week. So the only way you can have this going ahead is if we have 15 armed officers in your premiere.
Really?
So,
Really?
So we had 15 armed police sitting there with guns like that, premiere, expecting it all to go off. I mean, nothing happened. But that was.
But then that probably helped the hype of the film too. That you had armed policemen.
Well, listen, I never said anything about it, but that would have actually been quite a good.
Yeah, it would have been a good PR stunt.
Because it was 19 years ago. But what was funny about that was the Met actually went round to every club in London and said, if you let anybody from that premiere do any parties here, or anybody comes in, you let them in, we're going to take your license away. So they shut all the West End down. Luckily, my mates all ran the club. So I rang them up and said, look, I need somewhere to go. So I've got like 50 people with me. And they said, oh, the police are actually here, like telling us don't let anyone in. And they've actually got police cars outside the thing. And he said, look, as long as you come in groups of like 4 or 5 people, not in big groups, he said, you'll be all right. But when we was in the premiere, it was really funny because it was a black gangster film. Obviously, the majority of the audience were obviously black. And obviously, I'm sitting there with my wife and she hasn't seen the film, so she doesn't know what I'm doing in the film. So obviously when I start being this like racist cop, all you heard in the whole, every time I said anything racist, the whole cinema was like that. And people, they start shouting and heckling the screen. And my wife's sitting there and she's going, we're going to get murdered. Yeah, we're alive. And I said, babe, I'm playing an actor. It's not real, right? I said, it's just me. And it was really funny because when we left the cinema, everyone's come up to me going, that's what the police are like. They're racist. You know that thing, bruv. We love you and all that. So I said to Maxine, I said, see, I told you it's fine. So, but then off the back of that, I think it might have been the year. So we'd finished the film and there was a lot of hype around it because you had like all these artists talking about it and all these music people talking about it. So there was a buzz on the street about this Rolling with the Nines film. And I was at, I think we had I'm just going to have a look, Tom, at when the premiere was for Rolling with the Nines, because the date's important with the Nines.
Your self-belief must have been through the roof, but Terry, at this stage.
Right. So, yeah. So the Rolling with the Nines film premiere, it came out in April, but I think we did the premiere. It was, I mean, it was in April 2000 and no, that's not right. Oh, okay. So they're talking about the Rolling with the Nines premiere, but it actually come out in 2006, right? So that was when the film was made in 2005. So what happened was, as I'm there's all the hype around this film, And I was at Royal Ascot, and my wife and I used to go to this little Italian restaurant in Ascot High Street. So she sort of said, "Oh, let's go and get a bowl of pasta and then before we go home and have a glass of wine." So we've gone into this restaurant, and Carlton Leach was on the door, and he went, "Oh, tell," he said,
Wow.
"You know, you're in the film business now." He said, "Yeah, do you want to make my book into a film?" And obviously, you know, when a doorman in a restaurant says to you, "They want to make my book into a film," you do sort of just think, "Who's going to want to watch that?" But I said, "Yeah, you know, give me the book," and blah blah blah. And the book was called Muscle, and I read the book, and it had football hooligan stuff in it. It had the Essex Boys in it, and it had Nigel Benn in it. And I just thought, this sort
Wow.
of feels a bit like, you know, Goodfellas meets Football Factory, but set in England. So I
Yeah.
sort of said, you know, I quite like this, and I'll do a deal with you on the book. So the deal I did was, you know, I paid him like an option fee. I got the writers who wrote Rolling with the Nines to write the script, um, got the book rights, and then that process took probably about 9 months to actually get a script which you could send out to actors and get them on board.
Yeah.
And we onboarded Craig Fairbrass as Pat Tate, Roland Manukian, who was obviously Craig Rolfe. So we had the Essex boys, but we didn't have a Carlton. And
Yeah.
my agent at the time sort of said, "Oh, you know, we got this actor who was in 28 Days Later called Ricky Arnett. He'd be quite good." So the director met him, they got on, and he got cast. And then I went around for like a year. So I'm already a year into this, and I went
Yeah.
around for another year, knocking on the doors, asking people to invest, trying to raise the money. I raised a bit of money for it,
Yeah.
but every time I got close to getting it off, something would delay me or something would happen, and I got to the point where I think I was 2 years in, and I was like, you know, this film's never going to happen. And then I met these guys, um, and one of them was called Mike Loveday, and he just said, "We like the script, son. We'll give you the money, but we need the rights." And I was like, "Have the rights, you know? I just want to fucking make the movie." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And since then, you know, he's Mike Loveday was an older gentleman, sort of retired, and his son, uh, you know, stepped in, and you know, the franchise started from there. There's
Yeah. It's
been
been huge.
six and a
Huge.
computer game now. So yeah, I mean, it's and that was all, that all spun out of having a bowl of pasta at an Italian restaurant. So
There you
you,
go.
you never know. I mean,
You
and
don't.
that's one thing. Uh, the biggest lesson I've learned in life is you've got to be open to opportunities. You never know. Like I was with Ricky Hatton the other night, and he was doing one of these. He does his like audience whips, and he was out the road from me. So he said, "Oh, do you want to come along?" So we went along. We had a right laugh, and then I met the promoter. And the promoter said to me, "Why are you doing these?" Because when Ricky was on the red carpet having the pictures with the meet and greets, people were coming off going, "Oh, tell you're a picture,"
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
said, "Oh, you should be doing these." And I said, "To be honest," I said, "I've always thought about it, but I said I really want to do it, you know, with my podcast rather than me being, oh look, it's the Tony Tucker, you know, Essex Boys thing, because obviously it's great that
But
people know."
then you've earned your stripes at this stage. So you know, like what's got you from A to Z is just incredible. You know, you
It's
should
not. It's not.
sometimes
I was just going
take
to
a
say,
step back and look. You've done so well, Tag.
do you know something? It's funny. Like, I think the biggest mistake an entrepreneur can do is to be complacent. And I think one
Yeah.
of the things
Yeah.
that I've always done, I've always wanted more. I've always thought, you know, it's great that, you know, we've had a franchise, but you know, I've been sort of, especially the last year and a half, I just thought, well, you know, I've been there, seen it, done it. You know, I don't really want to keep on just regurgitating the same old thing with Footsoldier. I
Yeah.
don't mind
Yeah.
being in them, but I just think as a creator, you know, I want to create something, another franchise. So what I did was 18 months ago, a friend of mine who runs a criminal law firm said to me, he said, "Oh, you know, why aren't you doing these sort of UK rap county lines films?" And I said, "Well, you know, I'm not really. I've just been busy doing this. I'm developing a film about Shah of Iran. I'm working with an Oscar-winning director and writing on that, and I'm obviously got all these other projects that I'm doing." And he said, well, no, genuinely tell. He said, you're missing a trick. And he said, I represent a lot of these guys. And he said, unfortunately, they're either dying or going to jail. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
then the
yeah,
next
I
lot
agree.
come in and then they die or go to jail. And I started to research it and look into it. And obviously, UK rap now is bigger than it's ever been. So there was a friend of mine called Greg Hall who wrote Villain, which was #1 on Netflix. And he actually said to me, so I'd love to write something. So we come up with the stories, the characters, and then he just
Yeah.
basically put it all on paper. And we've now, pulled that together. We're collaborating with crypto.com. We've got 100 million users worldwide, and we're going to be doing something with this that no one's ever done with a film. And we've got some massive stars in it, some huge UK rap stars. So that's going to be our new film stroke franchise. So I'm going to be putting sort of my heart and soul into that. And then we're going to get that off. And then the plan is obviously to do one of those a year.
Want to tell everybody the name of it?
Tales from the Trap.
Tales from the
which
Trap.
is it just sounds, it's like rolling with the dice. I mean, one of the good things that I come up with is I do come up with
So it's going to be
good
like
names.
Top Boy, you said? It's going to be like a
So
Top Boy?
it's Top Boy meets Blue Story, but obviously it's violent. I mean, it's really Rise of the Hood Soldier.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's obviously a new thing that I'm sort of doing. But going back to that guy that I was talking to about the doing these audience whips, he actually said,
Yeah.
you should take your podcast on tour, because you've had some great guests on there.
Of course.
I was like, sounds great. So, again, if I hadn't have gone to that thing and I hadn't had the conversation with that guy, the opportunity wouldn't have happened. And I think with all these things, what a lot of people miss is they miss opportunities. And it's like someone comes up to you and says, I want to give you some money if you want to do this. And most people go, no, I don't really want to do that. But I'm always open, because I always think that you never know where it's going to end,
No,
and
you don't. I've got a saying: the more hands you shake, the more calls you make, the more money you make. You need to be out doing the hustle.
No, I'm with you on that, Tom, 100%. And I genuinely think that sometimes things are daunting. I mean, people would say, how did you collaborate? How did you collaborate with a massive company like crypto.com? And it all started off. Well, I was over in Dubai and I met a guy who's from Essex, and he's a big Footsoldier fan, and he is a managing director of crypto.com, and we just got on really well.
Right.
And I sort of said to him, I'm surprised crypto.com haven't done any movies. And he said, look, everything we do has to be community led, and their user base are 18 to 30-year-olds. So he said, if you got something for that, he said, we can have a conversation. And I've sent him the script, told him what we were doing. He plugged me straight into the people in California. And he said, right, we're going to collaborate. So, but again, if I hadn't have been in Dubai and I hadn't met him and had that conversation, then that would never have happened. But so I think, like you said, Tom, you're saying is absolutely bang on.
But it's even like my amazing I'm very lucky to have a relationship and call you my friend. I'm friends with Keith Bishop, the man himself, who's Johnny Depp's PR manager. And I said to Keith, I want you to get me a role in a movie. He says, I've got just the guy. But I must have asked Keith 25 times in 2 weeks, because it's what you do. And he went, listen, you fucking, and I'm like, okay. He was going to say the C word. And so then he organized it. And then me and you became friends, lucky enough to get asked to have a part in your movie. You've asked me to be in your second one. But unless you're putting yourself out there, these things never happen.
I think the biggest crime that anybody can commit is not telling people what you're doing, right? Because I could tell somebody what I'm doing, and they might just go, oh, great, well, good luck with that. Or they might turn around and say, I want to invest in that. Or they might turn around and say, my mate, daughter wants to be in a movie, him invest in it. So you have to let people know what you do. And somebody could turn around to you tomorrow and say, my mate's the managing director of Sony, I'll give you an intro. Do you know what I mean? You never know where it's going to go. And that's what I love about life. And that's what I love about business. I mean, again, going back to Dubai, when I was in Dubai, I was there for a couple of weeks, putting his film together, talking to people about where we can film Shah of Iran. It's looking like we're going to do that in Saudi or in Jordan. The Abu Dhabi people didn't fancy it. I don't know why, but when I was out there, I got talking to another guy called Maximilian White, who's he's a billionaire. He's a Jeff Bezos of weed, basically. And we got chatting, and we've been mates for years, but we've never actually met up. We've always been on Instagram. He knows me, I know him, but we never really sat down. And when I was in Dubai, I messaged him and said, I'm in town. If you're around, let's catch up one night. And he told me about this amazing thing he's doing. And when I said to him, why do they call you the Jeff Bezos of weed? And he said, well, look, he said, I've got a facility in Portugal, and we do 700 tons a month, and we do the NHS, we do all the governments around the world, and he said, and places where it's legalized, we've been supplying it. But he said, basically, we cannot grow any bigger. So he said, I wanted to come up with an idea on how we can grow this exponentially and be the Amazon of weed. And I was like, how'd you do that? And this is mad, right? And I've not talked about this on a podcast, Tom, so you've got a bit of an exclusive.
Yeah, let's hear. Yeah.
But he has built this thing called Dr. Green NFT. And lots of people will go, NFTs, what's that all about? Pictures of monkeys with fucking laser beams coming out of eyes and all this stuff. But a lot of people don't know that with an NFT, you can use it to license things, right? So he went to the Portuguese government and said, look, he said, I'm doing this already. I've got the license to import cannabis around the world. And he said, if I, put this on the blockchain, my license, can I license these NFTs to basically sell my weed? So he's gone out, he's got these huge celebrities, people like the Wayans brothers, Flo Rida, Tom Zanetti, Eddie Hall, myself, Noel. Yeah, he's got so many people. He's got probably about 50 of these massive people in like rap, music, fashion, DJs, actors, and literally is creating their own strains. And then what happens is they're doing a big launch in June where people can actually buy these NFTs. But essentially what happens, it gives you a license to sell cannabis. Now, Germany have just legalized it. Spain have legalized. All of Europe's legalizing weed. Right?
Wow, amazing.
And what's interesting about it is when you buy it on the street, obviously you don't know what you're buying, right? People put fentanyl, fiberglass, they're putting chemicals in it that are causing people that are taking it, whether it's for recreational use or for medical use, it's causing them mental health issues and it's making them sick. So because this is pharmaceutical grade, right? Anywhere where it's legalized, they can actually, you can go on the app, you can order it, and they deliver it to your house the next day. And a lot of people don't know this, but when you look at the places where it's not legal, unless it's prescribed, if you have depression, anxiety, mental health problems, if you have aches and pains, you can actually go to a doctor and you can actually get a prescription, and you can actually then buy it legally, right? So what he's doing, I mean, when he told me about it, when people tell you about something and you think this sounds like something that's happening in another world, but I've actually seen it, I've seen it over the last 7 months, and it's just like growing exponentially. And I actually spoke to him the other day, and I said, when you told me about this, I thought it sounded a bit mad, but I said, you're actually doing it. And so that probably be, there's quite a lot of press about it already, but that's launching later this month, Tom. So you've got
exclusive. Can I just ask you? Can you just do me a bit? What's the next big thing for you, Terry?
Do you know something? I mean, obviously, I've been doing the podcast called The Criminal Connection, and you're on
series 2. You're on series 2 at the moment.
Series 3. But we're not.
Oh my goodness!
But we're not. It's not just about gangsters and crime. It's about anybody who's got a criminal connection. So we've had like lawyers, we've had barristers, we've had law enforcement. We've had, Matt Goss isn't a gangster, right, from Bros, but he was just on our most recent episode. but he was really close with the Craze when he was in Vegas. He was at Caesar's Palace for 10 years, so obviously he met all the sort of mob guys in Vegas.
Yeah.
So he was, and he always sort of said that, you know, crime and celebrities have always sort of had that sort of slight interaction. But you know, he's not criminal. But again, you know, he'd come on and we used to go to school together, so we had a right laugh.
Brilliant.
But
Brilliant.
I think I think you know that's obviously, you know, we've already got a year's worth of interviews done because last year in our business, it all shut down because of all these writer strikes, actor strikes, director strikes. So somebody approached me and said, "Oh, have you ever thought about doing a podcast?" And again, I've been on a few, but I've never thought about doing my own one. So again, it was an opportunity that I took. I'm glad I did now because it's doing well. It's been in the top 100 podcasts on YouTube. It's hit the top 5 on Spotify and Apple. So from nowhere, and I've got to thank you, Tom, because you obviously sponsored the first season and supported your old mate Terry.
My pleasure. Yeah.
But you know,
but then, you know, just, you know, before we close off, because I know you've got things to do and your time's precious, you have to support each other on this journey, Terry, and that's what people forget. If you ask me to stand on one leg or to send an email or call a person, to do it, you're my friend. That's what you're supposed to do. You help each other out on the journey.
Oh, could you stand on one leg and do that email and call my...
Yeah.
But you're right. And the thing is, there's a lot of people that just want to take and they don't want to give back. And I've always had that thing where if somebody rings me and I can help them, I will help them always. You know what I mean? Especially if I'm close with them, like I'm close with you. And you know, I think in answer to your question, I think because we've got so much stuff already done for the podcast, because we're a year in front, it's not really going to take up any of my time. So my real focus now is on Tales from the Trap, getting that.
Yeah.
We've nearly got it all funded. So getting that funded, getting that made, putting it through this new model. Obviously, this Dr. Green thing is going to be launched this month, which is going to be big. I've got a couple of movies that I really want to make. One's about the rise and fall of Shah of Iran. That was the one I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And the other one is about John Palmer, who was called Goldfinger. That's called The King of Crime. So they're the two sort of big films that I want to make. And then obviously Tales from the Trap. So on the film side, that's what I'm focusing on. But you know, like yourself, Tom, you get quite a lot of opportunities presented to you. And I think if I can add value to someone's business and it's not going to take up a lot of my time, then I'm always interested in opportunities. But obviously
I have to say, I feel privileged that you've come on to our podcast, and the way you've spoke and the stories you've told have been amazing, Terry.
Oh, thanks, Tom. Well, listen, mate, I appreciate you inviting me on. I mean, you know, I'm a little bit disappointed you didn't invite me on as your first guest, but I'm joking. I'm pulling your leg. But yeah, but no, when do you think you'll be putting this out, Tom? Or are you going to do a season and then push it out?
Yeah, this episode will probably be out within the next 3-4 weeks.
Oh, amazing.
And we'll send it to you for your approval. Saying you didn't say any bad language. Oh no, you didn't.
I don't say anything. I don't say cunt often.
No, I just want to say a huge thank you. And you know, the podcast, you doing this means everything. However, your friendship means a lot more. So thank you so much, Terry.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate you and appreciate the mentoring and the positivity. And you know, I think in life you don't find that many people that genuinely want to support you, but you've always been one of those genuine guys, Tom. And you know, I appreciate your friendship, support, and love, baby.
Thank you, baby. Winners win, Terry. Thank you.
Winners win, and I'll be seeing you on a film set soon, Tom.
You will. Thanks, Terry. Thanks a lot.
No worries, brother. Good to see you.